Howdy folks, hope you're all having a good one, and welcome back to World of Warships with Rear Admiral Jingles, where today, in this Tier 8 clan battle on the Trident map, Cowplop 2, great name by the way, Cowplop 2 is going to have the extreme misfortune of playing the worst ship in the game, HMS Tiger 1959. Worst ship in the game, eh, Jingles? That's a pretty bold claim, considering the competition from other terrible Tier 8 premiums like HMS Belfast 1943, but yeah, that's true. However, I believe I can make a convincing case that even in a game where absolute turds like the Tier 5 Russian Krasny Krim exist, this is still not just the worst thing that you could possibly spend money on in World of Warships, but even if the Tiger 59 was a free tech tree ship, you'd still feel as if you'd been shortchanged. This is a ship that is so bad that Wargaming even lie about it in the ship description. And I quote, "One of the last artillery cruisers of the Royal Navy," actually it was the last artillery cruiser of the Royal Navy, "armed with the most advanced and powerful guns that Great Britain had at its disposal in the 1950s. As if HMS Vanguard didn't exist. I actually knew somebody who served on one of these. When I joined my first ship in 1990, the Type 22 frigate, HMS Brazen, the communications yeoman on board there served on board the Tiger's sister ship, HMS Blake. He was probably the most boring man I have ever met. Every single story he told always started the same way. When I was a boy sailor on the Blake. Anyway, you have to bear in mind that when these ships were being constructed, they were being built in response to the threat posed by the Russian Sverdlov-class light artillery cruiser, and the Sverdlovs were armed with 12 152mm guns, 12 100mm guns, and 32 37mm guns. So what does the Tiger get? Well, you just saw the fearsome firepower of the Tiger in action. It gets 4 152mm guns, and that's it. No secondaries. Hang on a minute, I'm pretty sure that at the front of the ship I saw what looked like a secondary gun turret. You did. In fact, at the front of the ship, where something like the Town-class cruiser, HMS Belfast, would have its second triple 152mm gun turret, that has been removed in the case of the Tiger, and there is a secondary / anti-aircraft gun turret there instead. But this ship does not get any secondaries. Despite the presence of secondaries in the ship's model, it doesn't get secondaries. Actually, while we're talking about HMS Belfast and the Town-class cruisers, just to put this into some kind of perspective for you, because HMS Belfast was decommissioned in 1963, which is almost exactly the same time that HMS Tiger was commissioned. So just as the Royal Navy was phasing out the Town-class cruisers, it was introducing the Tiger-class cruisers, and HMS Belfast, in one of its 3 turrets, has 75% of the firepower that the Tiger has in the whole ship. Okay, it's not quite as simple as that. The Tiger does technically have better guns. They're extremely rapid firing. I think with base reload, something like 3.2 seconds, which is pretty good. I mean, these are basically Minotaur gun turrets, and Minotaur guns are great, but the Minotaur has 10 of them. Right? The Tiger 59 only has 4. The turrets are good though. They have a ridiculously fast rotation speed, and they can rotate a full 360 degrees, so if you've got a target on the other side of the ship from where the guns are currently engaged, you don't have to swing them around the entire length of the ship in order to bring them to bear. So that is good, but it still does only have 4 guns in 2 turrets. But Jingles, there are other ships that only have 4 guns in 2 turrets that are really, really dangerous in a gunfight. The Halland, for example. Well, yeah, but I'll counter that with, well, first of all, an example. Have a look at the Congress over there. Flat broadside. Just look at how little damage he's doing here. And also look at how long it takes his shells to get there. It takes about 12 seconds for the Tiger's shells to reach a target at maximum range. So the slightest bit of wiggle, and those shells are going to miss. Fortunately, the Congress didn't wiggle. But despite the fact that the Congress was not making it that difficult for him to hit her, despite the fact that he does get improved penetration angles and very, very short fuse timings with these 6-inch armor-piercing shells, he still only did 11,000 damage with 16 penetrating hits. The damage per minute on this thing is abysmally bad. And here's another big problem. Oh, yeah, it gets no hydro. Gets radar and a smoke screen, but no hydro, and radar doesn't detect torpedoes. The one good thing about these guns is the extremely short fuses on the armor-piercing shells make up for the lack of high explosive shells when it comes to dealing with enemy destroyers, because these 6-inch AP shells rarely overpenetrate against destroyers. But that's enough about the guns. Let's talk about the survivability, because here comes the enemy Bismarck. Yeah. In common with a lot of other British cruisers, this thing doesn't have any armour. Its belt is 83mm in places, mostly just 25mm everywhere else, which means that the Bismarck over there with its 15-inch guns can overmatch from just about any angle. So your best defence against the Bismarck is to pretty much do what Cowplop is doing here and make yourself as small a target as possible. But because, unlike other ships in the game that only have 4 guns, the Tiger is not a destroyer, it has a citadel. And if just one of those 15-inch armor-piercing shells hits the stern of the Tiger, it's going to arm the fuse, the shell will travel the entire length of the ship and explode inside the citadel, and you will have a very, very bad day. And because you're a cruiser and not a destroyer, it's much, much harder to disengage because you're nowhere near as stealthy. Fortunately for Cowplop, his smoke came off cooldown, and he was far enough away to be able to continue doing trivial amounts of damage to the Bismarck with his 4 152mm guns without suffering detection due to the smoke firing penalty. Yeah, the smoke screen. You know, smoke screen and radar is a useful combination, that's certainly true. But smoke screen and hydro is a better combination, because radar doesn't last forever and smoke screens are torpedo magnets. And while we're on the subject of torpedoes, Tiger doesn't get any. So, if you're in, well, anything, and you see a Tiger smoking up, just launch torpedoes into the smoke screen because it won't see them coming, or just charge the smoke screen, because what's the worst that the Tiger's going to do in response? It's got no torpedoes. And look at the pathetic damage output of these 4 6-inch guns. He's on 59,000 damage from 138 hits. That's 427 damage per hit. Remember, a lot of those hits were fully penetrating hits against a destroyer. He basically doubled his damage done shooting at the Cossack, and then it took him 2.5 minutes to do the same amount of damage again to the Bismarck. That's just how bad these guns are. On the plus side, this is a very manoeuvrable ship with an extremely tight turning circle and very good acceleration, even though the top speed isn't great. In fact, it's kind of bad. But it's the firepower and the armour, or the lack of armour, that is the real Achilles heel of this ship. I mean, shooting up destroyers, you need to be a good shot at that kind of range because of how floaty the shells are. Fortunately, he managed to get the kill. But heavy cruisers in particular are a nightmare for this thing to handle, especially if they're firing armor piercing, which fortunately that Baltimore is not, and also appears to be a terrible shot. Because here's the thing, the Tiger, while it is very badly armoured, with only 25mm of plating across most of the ship, and even the belt armour is only at best 83mm thick in places, the real problem is the terrible citadel protection. It has a huge exposed citadel, and the citadel roof armour is only 13mm thick, which can be overmatched by the 8-inch guns of every heavy cruiser in the game. And of course, also every battleship in the game. And he's facing 2 heavy cruisers. There are a pair of Baltimores surviving on the enemy team. And all it would take is a couple of lucky armor-piercing shell hits from plunging fire coming down onto that citadel roof, and he will be ruined. Which is why Cowplop is running for the support of the surviving battleship, the Gascon, and not taking on 2 Baltimores by himself. His smoke's back off cooldown, and now the Baltimores have got a battleship to shoot at. So he is able to, well, I don't want to say farm damage on the Baltimore. I mean, he's still not doing a lot of damage, because that's just what the Tiger does, or doesn't do. But between him, the Gascon, and the Gascon secondaries, they have reduced that Baltimore to very, very low health. He's managed to go undetected, of course, and Cowplop isn't going to be able to do any more damage to him until he gets eyes on him again. And while we wait for that to happen, let's just cover the final deficiency of this ship, which I probably should have touched on earlier when I was talking about how all of those secondaries on the Tiger are not actually secondaries, they are in fact anti-aircraft guns. Well, this ship must have good AA, right? No. What? It's got the defensive anti-aircraft fire consumable. Yeah, it's still got shit AA. The AA on this thing has long range, but it just doesn't do damage. I think it only generates 3 flak bursts. Which basically means that the only time this thing is going to be a problem to a carrier is if it's a tier 6 carrier and the defensive anti-aircraft fire is up. Otherwise, all of the carriers are not even going to notice this thing's there. Hey, well, I say he nailed the Baltimore. I'm pretty sure the Gascon did most of the damage, but he did sink the Baltimore. But that leaves one of them, and he only has 2,500 health, but Cowplop has 20,000 health. You wouldn't believe how quickly that situation can change when you are sailing the Tiger 59. Look, just watch this. The Baltimore has 1,300 health. Go on, Tiger, have him. Do your worst. Any time today. My God, this thing is shit. Oh, and you're on fire. And your damage control's on cooldown, and you've got none of your super heals left. What are you going to do now, Sunshine? Because the enemy team have taken A, they're in the process of taking Bravo, and while you do still hold on to Charlie, and you do have a commanding points lead, it's not going to be enough. Because you can't just run. Because, well, first, the Baltimore's 2.5 knots faster than you, so he's going to catch you. Secondly, the Baltimore controls Alpha and Bravo, and he's going to flip Charlie if you give him half the chance, so while you're 400 points ahead now, in the 8 minutes of the game remaining, you won't be. You must sink the Baltimore. So the only advantage he has here is the stealth advantage. He will get to fire first. But you've seen how little damage these shells do to a heavy cruiser. And the second he fires, the Baltimore's going to see him and fire back. And you saw what happens when this thing, this utter turd of a cruiser, takes a hit from 8-inch armor-piercing shells, particularly the American heavy 8-inch armor-piercing shells. He's got 1 charge left on his smokescreen generator, but there's nobody left alive to spot for him, so that's not going to help. He does have 1 charge of his heal left. And you might be thinking, well, why isn't he using it? And that's a good question. He's probably holding it back until he can get the maximum amount of heal, which means he needs to take more damage first in order to get his money's worth out of the heal. It is one of those British super heals, but that's really dangerous. You've seen the amount of damage a Baltimore or any heavy cruiser can do to this thing. He's going to have to fight him. He doesn't want to. And there he is. And he will get the first couple of shots off because he does have the stealth advantage, which he of course loses the second he fires because the Baltimore sees him, and the Baltimore isn't leaving anything to chance here. He's triggered his radar. Why is the Baltimore not... Here it comes. Oh! Cowplop 2 getting 5 of the 6 kills available in this tier 8 clan battle. Definitely didn't get all of the damage. I can tell you that without even looking. Of the 344 shots that he fired in that game, 209 hit, and those 209 shells between them only did 82,000 damage, which is around about slightly less than 400 damage per shot. That is shamefully bad. And it's not his fault, of course, it's the ship. I mean, there are destroyers with better DPM than that, and I'm not talking about gunship destroyers like Harugamo, Kleber, Marceau. The Farragut has better DPM than that. And it's stealthier, and it's faster, and it has torpedoes, and it can't be citadeled. You would do better taking a Farragut into a Tier 8 battle than the Tiger 59. And yet Cowclop did take Tiger 59 into a Tier 8 battle and sank 5 of the 6 enemy ships in the process. How? Don't know. But it happened. You all saw it happen, even if we can't explain it. So, well, congratulations, I guess. Don't know what you did, don't know how you did it, but you definitely did it. Well done. So, do you agree? Do you think the Tiger 59 is the worst ship in the game? Or do you have another candidate? I remain unconvinced, but I'm prepared to listen to your arguments. You know where the comments section is, you know what to do. In the meantime, I hope you enjoyed today's video, and as always, take care, stay safe, and I'll catch you next time.